Welcome to PENSARE Basketball. Today, the Raptors have a boatload of options that were not available to them a week ago, following the trade of Ochai, a salary dump, effectively to the Brooklyn Nets, and the trade that brought Trace Jackson Davis, a player that I am very high on. If you haven't checked out my Trace Jackson Davis coverage over the last couple of days, definitely go check out those videos. You are seeing a Raptors team that has a little bit of flexibility and a lot of pies in the oven. Now, as with anything, be it managing an NBA team, managing your life, there's a lot of different things that you have to consider when you're making, disastrous moves. So, for instance, a lot of people said the Raptors should be a tax team. That has implications for your championship window because there's a repeater tax in the NBA. A lot of people felt that maybe the Raptors should go and trade for Day'Ron Sharpe or Goga Batadze, but the consequence would be a first round pick. The Raptors have learned their lesson. It's amazing to be a Raptor fan because I still remember the days when the Raptors would trade first round picks for Thaddeus Young and Ochai, and now we're too snobbish and too good and too wise and too patient and too sage like to trade first round picks for Goga Batadze and Day'Ron Sharpe, players who are effectively better. But the Raptors have opened up a little bit of flexibility by way of the buyout market. And this is not a roster that is complete, but it is not a roster that is ready to compete. Not complete, not ready to compete, but definitely not a season you want to throw away. Now, I want to interpret and I want to say something that might be a little bit controversial for Raptor fans, but I promise I'm going to get there in a good, honest way. I truly believe that the fact that the Raptors have not beaten a good, healthy team, the fact that they are 1-11 against the top teams in the league, was a huge driver in terms of the decision making going into the trade deadline. I do believe that if the Raptors had shown up and beat teams like Minnesota, teams like New York, teams like Boston, maybe if we had played Detroit earlier and we had stopped them a couple times, maybe if we had gotten to see this team really pushing for, playoff hopes, then maybe the Raptors would have mortgaged the future and said, screw it. Let's go for Anthony Davis. Let's give up the first round pick for Day'Ron Sharpe. It's worth it. But right now, I feel like what the Raptors front office did was pretty much spit in the face of the current Raptors team. Not really spit in their face, but really effectively just bow down and say, listen, you're not good enough for us to invest in this, which is interesting because, of course, the Raptors did invest in the Raptors roster that was in Scotty's rookie season by giving them reinforcements via Thaddeus Young, because that was a slight benefit to the playoff push. They did, of course, the very next year, vote of confidence for the sixth place team in sixth worst team in the NBA at that time, really struggling. Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes. But because of the ascent of Scotty Barnes and Scotty Barnes being ahead of timeline, they decided to go and invest in Jakob Poeltl and say, let's go try to do something in the playoffs and give this core a real chance. The Raptors are not giving this core a real chance because they have a lot of holes on their roster. And one way that the Raptors could potentially fill some of those holes is the buyout market. And the buyout market is very interesting if you're a Raptor fan, because there are some players on this buyout market that really fit and offer upgrades on the players that you currently have. So if you believe that Jakob Poeltl is going to be healthy, and if you believe that Trace Jackson Davis can return to his rookie form, and I do believe he can, then I don't think you need a center as badly as some people think. Surely, if a veteran stretch big gets waived at some point over the next couple of weeks, you can then explore that option. But as it currently stands, the Raptors have a little bit of room under that luxury tax line, and they have afforded themselves their favorite word, which is flexibility, optionality. The Raptors under Masai Ujiri or Bobby Webster are always all about options, unless, of course, it comes to extending Jakob Poeltl and Emmanuel Quickley, in which case they don't care about the options. But when it comes to fringe rotation guys, when it comes to clearing the end of their books, they're all about optionality. They love the idea of being able to explore 10 days, two-way conversions, and all the options are open to the Raptors. Now, yesterday in the press conference, Bobby Webster did basically admitted that they will waive Chris Paul at some point. Now, you can't trade Chris Paul because the trade deadline is gone. So you can't trade him for a minimum contract on another team, which kind of sucks because I'm assuming that some of the teams that would be interested in him probably had a minimum contract that we could have used. So maybe Chris Paul plus a second round pick for a really good young player, second round pick type of guy who's not playing. might have been an interesting offer, but the Raptors couldn't get it done. And obviously, at this point, you're going to waive Chris Paul at the appropriate time. Why not now? Why not now? Well, there's a lot of reasons for why not now. Number one, for your 2-day, contracts or your two-way contracts, having a full roster per Blake Murphy, having a full roster is going to allow you to maximize the two-way spots, right? In terms of their days eligible. That's one thing. Number two, you don't really get anything for waiving Chris Paul right now. You'll waive him before the playoff eligibility date so that he can still sign up with a team. Now, if he comes to you tomorrow and says, I have an offer on the table, you'll waive him right away. But right now, the Raptors don't have to do it. So he's just going to stay on the roster for a little bit. But that being said, the Raptors should probably explore filling that spot. And I'm going to take you through a bunch of options that the Raptors could, look at, including Cam Thomas, who was just waived by, put on the buyout waivers by the Brooklyn Nets, including Haywood Highsmith, including Matisse Thybulle, including Pat Connaughton, including the potentially, but as it currently stands, not to be waived, Chris Middleton. I'll give you my favorite option, and then I'll give you the likely option that the Raptors are going to go through, and I'll tell you why both make sense, but I would much prefer my way than the way I think Bobby's going to go. So let's start with Pat Connaughton. People who've watched the NBA for years should be very familiar with Pat. He's a known commodity in the NBA. This is a player who is probably not going to offer much of an upgrade in great detail over some of your players. What he offers is veteran presence, playoff experience, and frankly, a better version with a higher floor than a lot of your wings right now. As it currently stands, the Raptors have a lot of unplayable roster spots. This doesn't hurt you so badly right now because you've been relatively free of injuries on the wings. But if Brandon Ingram or Grady Dick go down for extended periods of time, you're going to be seeing a lot of AJ Lawson and Elijah Martin minutes, and I don't think in the playoffs that's going to suffice. So you're going to have to shrink your rotation. It's actually worth noting that I'm not even sure that right now, if you asked an average person, if you need to win a playoff game tomorrow, is Pat Connaughton a worse player than Grady Dick? He's a much better defender than Grady Dick by far. He offers you just a very solid floor. He's a really good shooter. On his career, this is a guy who is shooting around 36%, but this year in very limited time, he shot 40%, which is a little bit better than Grady Dick. Again, 35%, 36% on his career is not a sharp shooter. He is a white guy, so he gets a little bit of a bump on the shooting perception. But he is guarded. He is relatively guarded, and he can make some open shots. He's not a lights out shooter. He's not Luke Kennard, but hey, man, like he provides you with a solid rotation player. If Pat Connaughton is your 10th best player, you can win a championship. If Grady Dick is your 10th best player, I'm not sure you can win a championship. And I don't think the Raptors can win a championship with what they have on top anyway. But some of these guys are going to get you a little bit closer. So, yeah. I mean, and it's also worth noting, he's a little bit older. He's 33. So it gives you a little bit of a veteran presence there. Speaking of guys who are a little bit younger, here is 24-year-old Cam Thomas. Now, shout outs to Mars Talk Sports. Mars had a tweet last year where he said Cam Thomas is one of the best scorers in the NBA. I'm not sure I completely disagree with that. He is also the worst defender in the NBA, or he's up there. If there was a Rozzy awarded for the worst defender in the NBA, him, Anthony Simons, and probably Trae Young would be competing for that. Now, he's a good athlete. He's very balanced, decent ball handler, decent shooter. Never seen a shot that he didn't like. Do you want this guy? He's 24 years old, and he would present a very loud distraction, potentially, if it doesn't work out. That's another thing you have to balance out if you're Bobby Webster. Do you really want to screw this up? You have a team full of guys who buy into the defensive end. Yeah, sure, Jamison Battle and Grady Dick and RJ Barrett aren't good defenders, but at least they try. Is it possible to sustain a top 10 defense with Cam Thomas on the court? I don't think so. So, surprisingly, I don't think Cam Thomas is going to be my top target for the Toronto Raptors, but he is a very interesting target in that maybe a team that lacks dribble creation, can't beat a zone, can often not generate clean shots in the half court, often over relies on guys like Brandon Ingram, isn't good enough offensively to snub their nose at a guy like Cam Thomas. Maybe we need to get rid of the reputation and just give it an open-minded shot. Maybe you need to just have a conversation and say, what are you looking to do? What am I looking to do? Are you willing to buy into a role as a sixth man? Because honestly, like the Raptors go through lulls lulls where they can't generate a clean shot. And he has a lot of scoring gravity. I'm not saying he's doubled and triple teamed like Brandon Ingram, but teams do respect him a lot more as a scorer than they do Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter, and frankly, a lot of players on your team. He's not a bad shooter. He's not like a non-spacer. So, I mean, again, this is something you're going to have to explore. Yeah, on his career, he shoots 34% from three. It's a lot better than Grady Dick. It's a lot better than Scotty Barnes. It's a lot better than RJ Barrett. So, again, like, it's kind of weird to say you can pretty much replace a lot of what RJ Barrett does with Cam Thomas, with a slightly smaller player with worse defense. But yeah, I mean, it would offer some RJ insurance because this is a guy who, if he could buy in to a cleaner shot diet, if he can shore up some of the shot selection issues, if he can become a slightly better passer, and I will always believe that really good scorers do have the potential, retain some potential to become better passers later in their career. He is still only 24 years old, and opportunities like this present a massive upside with very limited downside. So the only downside is he comes in and he tries to take over your team, and people get very mad, and your chemistry gets very disrupted. Malachi Brenham, interesting that a player who's 22 is being released in this sense. This was actually Malachi Brenham was the player that was picked by the San Antonio Spurs with the pick that they received for Thaddeus Young. So that's kind of funny. He'd be coming home. Welcome home, Malachi Brenham. He is ass. He is a very bad basketball player. I know he's 22 years old. So unless you see something that I don't see, I really don't get it. He's not that much worse than some of the players you have on at the very edge of your roster, but honestly, he presents a lot of redundancy, and I just don't see a world in which he can ever get on the court for the Raptors. Kyle Anderson is a non-option for the Well, he's not a non-option. The shooting is concerning to some extent. He's not a great shooter, but he's also not as bad a shooter as some of the players on your roster. He is a great playmaker, good passer, slow-mo, they call him slow-mo. He's like 30-ish, 32. He's 32 years old. I mean, this is a guy who has active hands. He is extremely smart. He would fit in very well if you didn't already have Colin Murray-Boyles and Trace Jackson-Davis and Scotty Barnes and Jakob Poeltl. This is the type of guy you go and get. He offers a very productive team defender and I think a reasonable offensive connector on your team. He doesn't operate in very complicated ways. It's a lot of pick and roll ball handling, post touches. He cuts really reasonably well. He's a good off-ball mover. The Raptors really value that stuff. They valued Bruce Brown for this exact reason. Personally, I don't think this is going to be an option. I think he's on the older side, and there's a little bit of roster redundancy in terms of you already being kind of stacked at his position. I think you'd probably prefer more of a wing adjacent player, but this is an interesting option. Here's a lockdown specialist. Now, the Raptors don't have a wing lockdown specialist other than Scotty Barnes to put on to a really tough matchup that's torching you. But this could be a very interesting middle ground, right? Grew up in the snow, Washington, shout outs. 7-foot wingspan. Raptors have been rumored to be interested in him before. Has a reputation as the best, or one of the top 5 event creators defensively in the league. Has been injured a lot. I think people what's the word? I think they overstress some of the three-point shooting concerns. He's not a terrible three-point shooter. He's just not guarded, and he's not dynamic, and he can't create for himself, and he's very low usage, right? The true shooting percentage of 66% should be an indication of just how few shots he actually takes. The three-point attempt rate is actually pretty high and very ridiculous, but again, it's a very, very small minute sample size. The defense, however, is real. He is athletic, he is switchable, he is toolsy, he is disruptive, and he is very, very good. He is the best defender, in my opinion. If healthy, he is the best defender. However, offensively, very limited. Is he better than Jonathan Mobo? By far. Is he better than Colin Murray-Boyles right now? Yes, he is. People don't want to hear that, but he is, because he is a veteran player and he is just 28 years old. So you're still getting a guy who's still in his theoretical prime. But again, the injuries have really taken away some of the athleticism at this point. But still, great hands, great disruptor, good shot blocker. He is just a very, very specialist defender. That being said, it's not going to be somebody who is going to come in and take minutes away from Grady and Jacoby, etc. But this could offer a great deal of injury insurance for the Raptors, who don't have a ton of depth at the wing, reasonable depth that can play. Now, imagine you're in a playoff setting. Can you throw Jameson Battle out there if the opposing wings are, I don't know, talented offensive players? Not without really costing yourself. But Matisse Thybulle can stand in a corner and just take threes and be an absolute beast on the defensive end. We're also one of the best transition teams in the league, and he helps a lot with that, with his event creation. Again, putting a team out there with Matisse at the corner, Scotty at the corner, and CMB in the middle, this is a recipe to throw off an entire team. Like, you can shut down teams with this type of front court. If you throw Trace Jackson Davis out there, you may never score again, but man, like, the defense is going to be solid. So you got to lean into an identity right now. The Raptors have slipped out of the top 5 defensively. They were top 4 at one point. They're now 6th. I think you need to go all in on the defense or improve your offense. I don't think you can be necessarily going for middling players at this point. Now, I would argue Trace Jackson Davis represents a nice little, two-way thing, right? Because he does good things offensively as a passer and as a finisher, and he does great things defensively. I actually think Trace Jackson Davis is going to be used very much by Darko. I think he's going to love him. Like Darko was saying yesterday during the post-game presser, oh, I'm going to look at his film, blah, 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 blah. I think that's just a little disingenuous. Like, definitely Darko knows who Trace Jackson Davis is, and he knows a lot more about him than he was letting on. And he was definitely consulted heavily before the Raptors made a trade for him. But that being said, once he sees what I saw in Trace's, overall film breakdown over the last couple of days, like, I think he's going to be very, very excited about different ways to employ him. And Trace is 25. So adding Matisse Thybulle and Trace Jackson Davis to the end of your rotation, I think makes you just way, way better. Like, just adds quality defensive depth and gives you players who can at least function offensively around Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett. So, if you run out a lineup out there of Scotty at the point, RJ at the 2, Matisse at the 3, no, BI at the 2, Matisse at the 3, Scotty at the 4, and Trace at the 5. I think that could be one of your best defensive lineups. Just an incredible lineup. You could also, I think the Raptors generate a ton of open threes. They just don't make them. So it's like, I think he's going to fit right in with a lot of the questionable shooters. And hey, man, if you saw the logic of having Ochai Agbaji on your team, this is Ochai Agbaji on crack. Like, this guy is like everything you thought Ochai could be for you, we're hoping Ochai would be for you. This guy already is. The only difference is he's a little bit older and he's a lot more injury prone. So moving on from Matisse Thybulle, you can tell I really love the guy. Georges Niang is a non-issue for the Raptors because he is unfortunately injured, but this would have represented a great, great shooter. Now, what about Chris Middleton? Now, Chris was traded from the Washington Wizards to the Dallas Mavericks. And there was some expectation when the Dallas Mavericks traded for Chris that they would do right by him and allow him to chase, going on a playoff team. I think right now they're playing his bluff. Maybe they want him to get back a little bit more money because right now the reporting by Brett Siegel of Clutch Points is that the the Dallas Mavericks have no intention of actually waiving Chris Middleton. Now, if Chris Middleton were to become available, it's hard to argue that this is not the best overall fit for the Raptors from a player perspective. Now, recency bias be damned. Chris was the best shot maker on an NBA champion like less than 4 years ago. Let's keep that in mind. This is a guy who's played deep finals, playoff runs, been on a contender, solid veteran, still a pretty okay defender, definitely a step up from RJ Barrett and Grady Dick. When you go into these lulls with RJ, when he can't buy a 3 and he can't make a layup and he can't defend, wouldn't it help to have someone like Chris Middleton behind him? I also think that having a veteran presence like this who can still play as opposed to Garrett Temple, no offense, helps. I think one of the things you have to consider with whoever you bring in is how do they mesh with your locker room? What do they bring in terms of development? A lot has been made of Garrett Temple's positive influence on work ethic and chemistry and all that stuff. But hey, man, Chris Middleton is a different level of dog and a very similar type of person that will come in and presumably give you a lot of gems, right? So the Raptors have to consider that they are one of the youngest teams. And yeah, you may not believe in Scotty Barnes as a playoff number 1 or Brandon Ingram being a playoff number 1 or maybe RJ and IQ sustaining a backcourt that doesn't get torched in the playoffs. but you also don't want to completely squander a playoff run, right? I mean, there has to be a balance here. I understand that a lot of, people are just saying, "Nah, nah, nah, just convert Elijah Martin." My question is, why? Why? What have you seen from Elijah Martin that makes you think he's going to be a rotation player in the playoffs? Again, you don't need to do it. There's no competition here. Just leave him on a two-way, and then freaking if this summer he shows some development in G League, then extend him. There's no reason to convert a guy who's already on your team. He hasn't exhausted his minutes yet. So it's just a very silly thing. It's a very silly thing. I think if Chris Middleton becomes available, the Raptors have to call. Nigel Hayes Davis is another non-option on account of the fact that he is absolutely trash. What about Chris Paul? Now, again, I have made no secret of the fact that I like Chris Paul a lot more than the average person. There's a lot of people out there who are pretty much professional Chris Paul haters. I am not one of those people. I have seen the impact that he's had on every single team that he's gone to, and whether people hate him or like him, ultimately he drives development in a major way. I think Chris would be really good for Scotty. If he is even remotely open to the idea of playing for the Raptors, I think this might just be your best bet. He offers Jamal Shed injury insurance because Lord knows you're not running Chucky Hepburn in the playoffs. And, yeah, you do have Scotty who can occasionally run point. You do have RJ who can run point. But hey, man, I think that this would be a very interesting option for the Raptors if development and sustainability and a guy who can actually still play are on your radar at all. Also, it's worth noting he already has a pre-connection with Trace Jackson Davis that will help Trace accommodate to Toronto. These two will come in together, reignite the wonderful chemistry that they had on the second unit. Maybe this means that okay, Jamal Shed. I think this takes minutes away from Jamal Shed, if I'm being honest, but it could also help Jamal because Chris is a better player than Jamal right now. And I hate to say that to you because you're probably not going to agree with me, but Chris is a significantly better player than Jamal. He's a better passer. He is a better playmaker, just a better playmaker, a better shooter. He's just better across the board. And obviously, I think Jamal could learn a lot from Chris. I think he could take him to the next level. And I think Scotty, most importantly, will benefit the most from Chris. Scotty and Jacoby, I think, would benefit the most from Chris's presence here. So I'm a big fan of Chris Paul. And if Chris Paul was even remotely willing to stay, I would keep him. However, Chris is 40 years old. That's one thing. And number two, he specifically self-limited himself to being on the West Coast in California when he signed with the Clippers. And obviously, James saying CP3 is done. He's not the same player he was. Well, last year, he was still a very good point guard. And this year, he was on the Clippers when they were terrible. And it's interesting that when he left, they became amazing. Now, again, some people are going to look at this as a very different way. I mean, it depends on if you like him or you hate him. If you hate the guy, you're going to say, well, every time he leaves, the team gets really, really good. I would say he imparts his wisdom and then he moves on. And that's why they become really good. Because again, Victor Wembanyama, Steph Castle, Devin Vassell, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I cannot ignore that every guard this guy tutors just becomes amazing. So again, it's not magic, but Chris is a very prickly personality, and I've heard a lot of rumors about who he is in the locker room, and some guys just swear by him, love him. He's still probably one of the top 3 passers in NBA history, and that hasn't gone away. My pick for the Raptors is actually not any of those players. Ironically, it's a player who hasn't played all year, who was last year, he was on the Miami Heat. A friend of mine reached out to me this morning and said, Rob, who's helping us? And ironically, his friend actually works for the Raptors. So just a fun fact there. Not high up in the Raptors, but he works for the Toronto Raptors. And he said, who's helping us? Who's the guy that we need? And he sent me this tweet. And I looked through the list and I looked at all the names on the list. And there was one name that I was just like, obviously this guy. And that name is Haywood Highsmith. Haywood Highsmith. Look, everything that the Raptors love about players is in Haywood Highsmith. He's switchable. He's a former D2 guy who played a ton of years in college, underdog, carved out a role with the Miami Heat, has started in playoff games. This is a guy, sorry, not started in playoff games, but has played 35 playoff games. He would offer you a high level. And he also shoots 40% from 3 in the playoffs. So the worth noting that the moment isn't too bright for him. He is a guy who's coming off an injury with the Miami Heat last year. The Heat salary dumped him in order to make room for Davion Mitchell. Interestingly enough, So here's a little funny thing about Haywood Highsmith. Haywood Highsmith was dumped by the Miami Heat to make room for Davion Mitchell. Toronto Raptor Davion Mitchell, by the way. The Brooklyn Nets waived Haywood Highsmith to make room for Ochai Agbaji, Toronto Raptor. Wouldn't it be the most poetic thing in the entire world if the Raptors then went out and just signed Haywood Highsmith, who is ironically the best player of the three? That would be hilarious. He is not old. He's 28 years old. You could still be signing up for the best 2-3 years of his life. I think he's everything that you maybe wanted from Bruce Brown in the last couple of years. He is someone who can absolutely help a contender. He is a really good defender, man. I love Haywood Highsmith. Like, I love his tenacity defensively, team scheme. He's a very smart, intelligent player. He plays with a lot of dog. He would serve as an incredible role model, I think, for guys like Jonathan Mobo, Chucky Hepburn, guys who followed a similar path to him in terms of being like underlooked, overlooked, overlooked at a youth rank and then carving out this productive NBA career. The Raptors love that, model archetype of a Fred VanVleet. Now, he's not exactly Fred VanVleet in that sense, but he is a guy who is a D2 guy. So shout outs to someone like, I don't know, well, he wasn't a D2 guy. Elijah Martin was a D1 guy. But again, small conference, small school, Jonathan Mobo, Elijah Martin, they all followed this overlooked. Sandro Mamukelashvili was also overlooked. So Haywood is 6'8". You are incorrect. He is not 6'8". He is about 6'5" with very, very long arms. So once again, he can play up a position. He can definitely guard some fours. I've seen him have to guard Scotty Barnes at times, OG Anunoby. That's a good one. Derek White. Jason Williams saying Derek White went D2. Yeah, go trade for Derek White. So yeah, Rob, I don't know if it's just me, but sometimes I'm hearing a lot of static, possibly from your mic. Is anyone else hearing static? I apologize if you are. I'm not hearing static, and I'm monitoring it very closely. Does anyone want to just turn your volume up and let me know if you're hearing static? No. Nope. Everyone's saying nope. So hopefully our audio is okay, but I'm sorry you're experiencing some technical difficulties, James. So anyways, so what should the Raptors do and what do you need to balance here? So let's just sum up the thoughts here. I think the Raptors are probably going to do the thing that I don't want them to do, which is over the next month, they're probably going to flirt with, let's call it 10 days. Like they're gonna bring in some 10 days. They're gonna look at 10-day guys. I don't think you can bring in a 10-day guy if your roster is full, so that is going to be really tough. So the Mo Bamba thing will be really tough because Chris Paul is technically your 15th player because you got rid of Ochai. So I think maybe over the next week they waive Chris Paul. Over that week, they'll probably take a look at Elijah Martin. They'll probably take a look at AJ Lawson, see if either one of those guys warrant conversion. They might even look at Chucky Hepburn and see if he warrants but I think he's injured. Is he still injured? Is Chucky Hepburn still injured? So that's probably one way that you look at it, which is you slow play it. You give this core a chance. You continue to play Grady Dick. You continue to evaluate Jacoby Walter, see if these guys can build up a rhythm. You try to see who is RJ Barrett now that he's returning from injury. He hasn't looked like himself since he's come back from that knee injury. So this is one of those things where you're just going to have to do a little bit of Frank Ruzich saying Jock Landale's stat line in his Atlanta debut, painful. 26 points, 10 for 14, 5 for 8 from 3, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 blocks. Wow. You know, it's really funny. I would be victory lapping on the Jock Landale thing because I did say that he was one of my targets for the Raptors. If you remember, who were my targets for the Raptors? Hold on one second. Just pull this up for a sec. Let's just go back for a sec here. Kyrie was number 1. That I definitely remember. Hang on one second. Let me share this for a sec here. I'm actually just looking this up here. This is from a long time ago, weirdly enough. So this is Top targets for Toronto, November 19th, 2025. So that was early this season. Day'Ron Sharpe, Ivica Zubac, Daniel Gafford, Kevon Looney, Goga Batadze, Isaiah Jackson, Robert Williams, Trace Jackson Davis. Time to victory lap. Hang on. Herb Jones, Cason Wallace, Keon Ellis, Malik Monk. So, hey, man, this is why we tweet. We tweet so we can victory lap. That's the whole point of tweeting. Okay, I'm kidding. Okay, so let's check this out here. I know I have. There we go. So this was my trade wish list that I opened up on February 3rd. I didn't think Trace Jackson Davis was available, but Kyrie Irving, Day'Ron Sharpe, Malik Monk, Robert Williams, Najee Marshall, Donovan Clingan, Jock Londale, Ivica Zubac, Santi Aldama, and Ayo Dosunmu. So yeah, could Cam Thomas be an option? Go back about 15 minutes. Why are we not signing Huff, Londale? Well, I mean, at least for those first two, because they're under contract with another team. There we go. So, okay, give me one sec here. David C saying, I was hoping for Zubac. Listen, like when you see the asking price for Zubac, and you see what the Raptors were competing against, there's no chance in hell that you could possibly have gotten him. It's just not possible. You don't have a trade in the world that is reasonable that could have competed with that Indiana offer. Obviously, Indiana was very desperate for him. They liked him. Apparently, Caitlin Cooper just did a film breakdown on him. I'm going to definitely check that out later once I'm done with some pendant stuff. So, yeah. Do you have the Raptors winning a first round matchup? I think this is exactly where the Raptors need to be thinking right now. So, look, data is king. Data is the most valuable currency in the NBA and in life and in stocks and in tech and in everything. The more numbers you have, the better your understanding of those numbers, the better your understanding of your information, the better decisions you're supposed to make. Again, in theory, you could just be a dumbass and just make the wrong decision, even though you're staring point blank at the right data. So you measure, you accumulate, you consolidate, you sift, you cut the noise, and you say, what is real? Now, if the Toronto Raptors just want to be casuals right now, they can say, oh, well, we're close to third in the East. I'm going to say something that's somewhat disrespectful to the show that I'm often on, which is Player's Choice, which is there's often an argument of how far are you from like the second seed or the first seed or the fourth seed that is often brought up. And this doesn't take into account anything else. It doesn't take account trend line. It doesn't take account strength of schedule. It doesn't take into account historical data on what works and doesn't work in the playoffs. It's just a simple mathematical equation of we're 2 games out of the first, so we should go and trade for Anthony Davis. It's a very simplified, very dumb way to look at basketball. Now, I hate this argument, and I hate the argument, and you'll understand. If you watch the show, you understand that I was higher than everybody in the world on the Raptors going into the season. Made a video saying, think the Raptors will be a 50 win team. Okay, cool. So I should be victory lapping on that statement right now and saying, look, they are probably going to get closer to my win expectation than anybody else's win expectation. But I have decided to pivot away from certain things because the data that I'm looking at is not the win total. Even though the prediction was 50 wins, the concept of 50 wins was due to a way that I expected this team to be and play and develop that would result in 50 wins. This team is not playing to my expectations of what I think they should be doing. Now, for most people, it's really weird to understand this, and you're probably just going to log out of this video right now and just be like, listen, I can't listen to this guy anymore. He doesn't make any sense. Hear me out. I believe that playing a certain way leads to winning and losing. And if you do enough bad things on the court, you'll lose. And if you do enough good things, you'll win. So on most nights, the more good things you do, the more likely you are to win. It's pretty simple. So my expectation for when I said there would be a 50-win team was that they would play well enough to be a 50-win team. Right now, they're playing well enough to be a 42-win team, maybe. And other teams are just either resting guys or blowing leads or just missing wide open shots. And I, for one, am not about to buy into results more than process. I'm always going to be process oriented when it comes to the Raptors. So there's a few things that maybe aren't going as well as I would think. Number one, Jakob Poeltl's health complicates so much. There's so much uncertainty around that. So Jakob Poeltl is not the player that I thought he would be coming into this season. Number two, Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett and their fit synergistically next to each other, their over reliance on passing to each other, this stuff. I think Emmanuel Quickly is right around the player I thought he would be. RJ Barrett is right around the player I thought he would be. I wasn't expecting any monumental jump from any of them. However, their synergy with their teammates isn't exactly what I want it to be. Scotty, it's a good example. Scotty's exceeding my expectations defensively and probably less on my expectations offensively. There have been games where he has blown me away offensively. I've been so amazed by his process, by his pace, by his patience, by his craft, by his growth in that area, by his pull up jump shooting at times. But the 3 point shooting going right down again, the consistency and motor of taking over games, I feel like this is just too much for me to buy into this idea that Scotty Barnes can currently be the best player on a championship team or the best player on a finals team. I just don't think he's there yet. I remain hopeful, as he is my favorite player, that he will get there someday. But I don't think that someday is going to come in 3 months. Now, could be wrong. Could be wrong. He could be just exhausted defensively. He's been carrying an insane load. There have been games this season where he has looked like a top 7, top 8 player. There have also been games where he's looked like he's not a top 50 player. That level of consistency by year 4, year 5, you're expecting the thing to just sort of flatline. And I think that his worst games are just too bad for me to bank on him to be my best player on a championship team. Now, again, that's not an insult. I can maybe bank on 7 players in the entire NBA to be the best player on a championship team. He's still a great player. He's a great player. He's still my favorite player. But that being said, he just might be another year away. So that's another thing. Then there is the expected development of Jacoby Grady. That has not gone where I would have thought it would have either. I was expecting Grady to be at least a 36 to 37% shooter. I was expecting Ochai to have some trade value. And I was expecting Jacoby to take a proverbial jump. And you know what? Honestly, I expected Mobo to be at least playable. CMB is exactly where I thought he'd be. Honestly, coming into this season, I'm like, yo, the best player in the SEC last year, yeah, he's going to be NBA ready. He's going to be really good. His finishing has left a little bit to be desired. His shooting has been a surprise. So when I sum total the entire thing, the Raptors are kind of where I thought they'd be record wise, but they're not where I thought they'd be process wise. And I don't need to remind you that teams are resting stars against the Raptors. You may count yesterday's win against the Chicago Bulls as a 31st win, but you didn't just beat the Chicago Bulls with Vucevic and Kobe White and Josh Giddey, which by the way means very little anyway because they're not a good team with those three anyways. But that being said, you beat a team with Anthony Simons and Jaden. I'm not supposed to count this win. This win is a non-factor to me. It doesn't count as a win. It doesn't count as a loss. It's just a non-factor. I am looking only at games that matter. Games against Miami and above. Miami, Charlotte, Atlanta, teams that I just respect. I don't care about these Washington games. I don't care if you win them. I definitely don't care if you win them. I'm a little concerned if you lose them because it shows immaturity, but I'm not overreacting when you lose to the Washington Wizards. And I'm not overreacting when you beat the Brooklyn Nets. I don't care. The Indiana Pacers game, like, I don't care. These games don't matter. I'm never going to get hyped because Scotty scored 50 points against the Indiana Pacers or Brandon Ingram scored 35 against Chicago. This doesn't matter. These are not teams that you measure yourself against. And right now, I believe that as I measure this Toronto Raptors team, I do not believe they have what it takes to beat a team in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. As currently structured, the Eastern Conference breaks down as New York, if we're going tiers, New York, Detroit, Boston. Like, that's the creme de la creme. Okay. Beyond that, you can probably argue, unless James Harden completely implodes the chemistry in Cleveland, they are there too. That's 4 teams. You don't probably have a chance to beat any of them. They're all bigger than you, more experienced than you, older than you, better than you, more talented than you, better shot creators than you, better first options than you. You just don't have it. I'm sorry. You might beat them by fluke, but you cannot walk in expecting to beat them. Okay? That's not happening. And no, adding John Morant was not going to change that because Emmanuel Quickley is probably this season about as good, if not better, than John Morant. And Ja is more expensive. So the Raptors, the only thing that they could have done to really change the odds would be to trade for someone like Kyrie Irving. And now you know why he was number one on my fucking board. Because Kyrie Irving, if healthy, does elevate you into those conversations from a shot creation, dribble manipulation. You're just too schemable right now. Honestly, the way the Raptors have been beaten by this zone, the way that they struggled against a press by a hapless, ridiculously bad Utah team, these things have to be factored into your understanding of this team. Now, Bobby Webster yesterday had a really good point. He said, we, fans who want us to be impulsive, you need to be patient. Maybe look at where you thought we'd be going into the season. This is, to me, wrong. Now, I don't judge someone for what they say publicly because they're a public figure as what they think privately. And I don't think Bobby Webster is stupid enough to be like, look, we're fine because we have 31 wins. I think he understands internally that this 31 thing is not the point. The point is, what am I seeing on the court? Who are we against good teams? And ironically, what he said doesn't match what he did. Because if you really do believe this team is really ahead of schedule, then I do think you would have parted out a couple first round picks to get Ivica Zubac. I do think that you would have gone and parted out with first for Davon Sharp. Right now, your future is still very uncertain. You're not sure about this core. You want more data. So you present the fans with this idea of like, we want to go evaluate in the playoffs. We want to give these guys a chance. We don't want to screw up team chemistry. But the reality is, I can read through your words, and your words are, I don't believe we're good enough. I don't believe we're good enough. We're not big enough. We're not strong enough. We're not old enough. We're not talented enough. And that's okay. So right now, you have to balance two things. Number one is, yeah, you're not good enough to part out first round picks for win now veterans. Thank God, because you used to think you were good enough when you traded for Thaddeus Young, but cool. You're not good enough for that. You're not good enough to make a splashy win now move for an aging veteran who's over the hill like a Nikola Vucevic to give yourself a modest boost in current production. Could have probably traded for Nikola Vucevic, who's available. Certainly an upgrade over whatever the hell you're playing at center the last few years, provides you with a spacing big. And that's exactly the type of move that I feel the Raptors would have made 3 years ago to give that Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam core a chance. But the Raptors did not do that here. So that is showing a level of restraint that I haven't seen in this front office in a few years. I'm very happy to hear that. Now, not trading a first round pick also opened up, this avenue to fill this roster spot. And now what you do with this roster spot will be the final, this is the signature on the painting. Okay. You've painted it. The painting includes Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, RJ Barrett, all these guys. RJ is still here. IQ is still here. Jakob is hopefully healthy. Based on how Yak's health goes, you'll probably be happy that you have a little bit of flexibility because if his health goes downhill again, now you need to go and get a center. You might need to convert somebody up, but I don't think you have a viable center on a two-way right now. So you'll probably need to go and buy out a center. Okay, cool. You need to go find a center in the free agent market, go find someone in the G League, whatever. Maybe it's Mo Bamba. Okay. Alternatively, if Jakob does do well, and neither Grady nor Jacoby show a prominent jump, right? Now that you're going to give them more minutes, RJ's in and out of the lineup. Who knows? Nurkic could be bought out. I don't know if he has already been bought out, but he could be bought out. So that's definitely a player that you could certainly look at. Yusuf Nurkic is solid. He's a solid player. I mean, if he's your second, third string center, he provides great injury insurance. And he's a capable defender and a very good rebounder and a reasonable passer. Like, he's not a bad player. I'm personally not a fan of him. But that being said, like, cool, good depth piece. My point is, NBA teams are littered with viable rotation players who don't get rotation minutes for one reason or another. They don't fit the scheme. They don't fit the timeline. There's a younger player who deserves minutes more. There are teams that have an embarrassment of youth and depth on their rosters, like OKC. There are teams that have very viable players who just get DNP CDs every single day. Case in point, the Orlando Magic. Their third string center is Goga Batadze, and they wanted a first round pick for him. You know what your third stringers go for? They wouldn't even go for a single second. So the point here is the Raptors lack depth. They lack quality depth. And if you're going to go to the playoffs, you need quality depth. They lack veterans. if you're going to the playoffs, you need veterans. And no, I don't mean Garrett Temple. I mean veterans who actually play, veterans who are on the court, veterans who can help you. So one way that I would do this, and again, I'll tell you what I think the Raptors are going to do. I think the Raptors are going to probably convert Elijah Martin. That's what I think the Raptors are going to do. And I'm going to disagree with it when they do it. Here's what I would do, though. For the next 5 to 7 games over the All-Star weekend, I would let Jacoby and Grady and Elijah get a lot of minutes. Okay. I'm not too, I'm not too concerned with wins and losses right now. Overall, I actually think it's perfectly fine to slip down to 6th. I just genuinely don't care. I'm going to give these guys as many minutes, as many opportunities as possible. And I'm going to tell them that this is basically a 6 to 7 game audition for you. I'm also going to conversely let Haywood Highsmith know that we're very interested in him and to maybe hang on until March 1st because we are willing to make him a really big part of our playoff rotation if he's healthy. He's obviously coming back from off-season injury, so he's going to need some time to ramp up. You don't necessarily want to throw him out to the Wolves in the playoffs. Okay, so at that point, if you don't see a notable pop from one of these players, if you don't see notable consistency, if Grady cannot become a better defender, Grady obviously distraught over his best friend Ochai getting traded, might need a week of mental health break. Sorry, that was a little bit snippy and a little bit mean. Jacoby Walter, obviously, need to hit some shots, need to, get a little bit more consistent with that jump shot. There's been periods of Jacoby's career where he's hit 40%, 42% from 3. And then there are periods where he goes to 20%. You can't be that inconsistent right now as a shooter. Your shots are being manufactured for you for the most part. Your role is not very complicated. You can just slide right in and be a better version of Ochai and just one who actually makes shots and frankly is a lot more dynamic defensively. So I think Jacoby is my bet that if you don't go with Haywood Highsmith, it's because you prioritize Jacoby's experience in the playoffs. But that being said, imagine you do get to the playoffs and RJ Barrett pulls a hammy. Who are you starting as your 5th starter? I'll give you an automatic answer. Haywood Highsmith. But he's not on your roster. So who are you actually starting? You're starting Jacoby Walter. Okay. Now imagine who you're facing is Cleveland. Who's he guarding? Who's guarding him? You don't want a player who is below average as an NBA player starting in a playoff series because, again, you want to know that you gave it proper due. These playoff runs are okay, meaningful experience, fine. You want these players to have experience getting to the playoffs. I get it. I want you to have that experience going through, feeling that intensity. But feeling the intensity of a sweep is not productive. You want to go in and you want to have a chance. Haywood Highsmith gives you a chance, in a series. Like I don't want to oversell it and act like he's fucking, prime Scottie Pippen, but he's so much better than some of the wings on your team right now that it would be really shocking to me that you don't make a move for this guy and then end up, sustaining an injury to either BI, Scottie, or, someone like that. I mean, the Raptors already know this, right? They had to go very, very deep into their bench when Fred VanVleet and Scottie Barnes got injured, in their last playoff run. You want to have depth. And, that's a good one. Start CMB or Mamu. That's a good one, right? You could start Mamu Kelishvili. What does that do to your bench? What does that do to your bench, right? What does that do to your bench scoring? What does that do to your defense? Haywood is a really productive defender who can actually shoot a little bit. I think that combination of 3 and D does not really exist on your roster, period. You don't have any defender who can shoot who's as good as him. Is that fair to say? Is Jacoby a better defender than Haywood Highsmith? Hell no. Grady? No. Mobo might be, but he can't shoot. You just don't have it. You don't have it. Like he is what he is for a reason. Okay? He played major minutes under Eric Spoelstra for a reason. So having a player like him or Middleton or frankly even Pat Connaughton to a very, very, distant 4th, right? This needs to be, like, in my opinion, the priorities. This is what I would do. I would 100% give these guys an audition. If they don't show anything meaningful over those 7 games, I'd just say, you know what? We're bringing in Haywood. We're going to ramp him up slow. And then in the final 2-3 weeks leading into the playoffs, he's just going to take one of their rotation spots. And he is just going to be like the 9th or 10th starter. And you know what? I don't care because You can learn a lot. You can gain a lot of playoff experience by simply, being on the bench. Okay, being out there for spot minutes, getting out there in blowouts. I think that Haywood would help Scotty and BI not have to shoulder such a physical load. He's a very physical player. I think he's a good cutter. He's a good mover. He's an intelligent basketball player. He can pass some things on. Obviously, I've already mentioned, all the reasons that I like him. And again, Matisse, if he's healthy, similar story, right? Again, a sort of like late draft guy, earned his way through hard work, very good character guys. The Raptors obviously have a filter that they pass every single player that comes into this team through. They want high character guys. They want guys who are willing to buy in. They want guys who can make, point 0.5 decisions. Every single player I have brought up as a plus for this team fits that bill. So that's what I would do. And why don't you let me know in the comments what you would do? Would you roll it over with Mo Bamba? Would you, go and wait? Would you sign Elijah Martin to a standard contract and convert him? You know, I think you can stretch the contract. Mm. That is true. Why did Miami drop him as Heats are in the playoff picture too? So the Heat didn't drop him per se. They traded him because he was having surgery. So they traded him away to be able to afford Davion Mitchell. It's a good question, but yes, they traded him away to be able to afford Davion Mitchell, and they gave up a pick in the equation, and the Nets actually benefited by eating his contract because they were beneath the floor. If you remember the Indiana Pacers, when they were beneath the salary floor, they signed Bruce Brown to that extensive deal, a really stupid deal. Yeah, that they eventually funneled onto us. If had him play significant minutes, I trust it. Yeah, and this is the thing. There's upside, there's downside, and then there's sustainable middle of the pack productive, productive production. That's very awkward. Cam Thomas among these players, among the players that I listed, Cam Thomas offers the greatest upside. It's a player who could like turn into something really amazing, and you'd be like, wow, I can't believe they got that guy. It could be an Isaiah Joe type of thing, right? That could happen. It definitely could happen, right? I'm not sitting here gonna hate on Cam Thomas because he's not my type of player. He's not my type of player, but I fully understand the talent. I can see it visually. A lot of big believers that this dude may, go over to Europe and win EuroLeague MVP, or he might figure out a bench role and just buy into a six-man role. I don't know. I don't think he's a Raptors type of player, but he's exactly the type of player the Raptors don't have. So I get the upside. There is, of course, the loyal, play the long road, Jacoby, Grady. We invested first round picks in these guys. We need to show them faith by giving them a chance. And then there is just a solid floor. What's the worst that this dude can be for my team in 10 minutes of playoff game? What is the worst thing this can do? Players, again, people don't think like coaches. But as an NBA coach, here's what I want to know when I put you in the game. You're going to be safe with the ball. You're going to make good decisions. You're not going to dog it defensively. You're not going to be hunted defensively, which is going to require excessive help. You're not going to get blow-bys that is going to result in my better players picking up fouls. This is what I'm looking for from my 9th or 10th man. And oh, by the way, if you're open and the ball comes to you, you can do something with it. That when a defense completely ignores you and there's an opportunity, that intelligently you can cut into space. That if there's a cross match in transition, that you can hold your own on more than one position. These are the things that I'm looking for from my 9th guy. This is not what I'm looking for from Brandon Ingram. This is not what I'm looking for from my top guys. This is what I'm looking for from my complementary guys. This is the guy that Jacoby Walter is supposed to become. This is the guy that RJ Barrett needs to become. Is the guy who doesn't become the catalyst for a 10-0 run for the other team. And Haywood Highsmith is not going to become the catalyst for a 5-0 run for the other team because he is sustainable basketball. And you need to offer sustainability with your round roster rotation. So that's my thought. Let me know what you think. I'll talk to y'all later. I got to go work on pen dance, but make sure to give this video a like. Thank you so much for following our trade deadline coverage. And good luck to the Raptors, man. We played the Pacers on Sunday. Ivica Zubac probably not going to play that game. He just had a kid. I don't think they're in any rush to make him play. I know that this 1-4 trade restriction with the Clippers has some people thinking like, are they going to try to make the playoffs? I heard that on Raptors Republic yesterday. I don't think they're trying to make the playoffs, honestly. Uh, TJ, TD, Trace Jackson Davis is playing. Yes, he should be in Toronto today. He has already changed his Instagram profile to Raptors. I'm very excited, man. I'm very excited for Trace Jackson Davis. Shout outs to TJD, man. Shout outs to TJD. I am a fan, and I will remain a fan, even if he struggles for his first few weeks and has some, tough. He's been kind of out of the rotation for the last couple of years in Golden State. We're gonna need to build him back up, but he offers something very, very productive for the Raptors. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace. Oh wait, super chat. My bad. Araf Haroon, maybe get another 6'7" wing. We're still kind of small. Well, without seeing this, I should have, addressed this earlier. I apologize, Araf. I don't know if you're still here, but I apologize. Someone let Araf know that I did get to a super chat. So, yes, Matisse Thybulle is about 6'6", but he has long arms. Haywood Highsmith is about 6'5", but he has long arms. Both these guys cover a ton of space defensively and can switch up or down a position. I would trust either one of them to guard at least 3 positions. I don't think I would trust anyone off the bench but Jacoby to guard 3 positions. And even at 3 positions, it's 1, 2, 3, not 2, 3, 4. So with Haywood, I could trust him all the way up to 1 through 4. I mean, I'm not comfortable. I'm not going to match him against Julius Randle, but he's someone who can hold his weight. So again, the Raptors have had a top 6 defense without a lot of great defenders. Like Jamal's good. He's pesky. He's an event creator. He draws a lot of fouls. Jacoby's good. CMB is good. Jakob Poeltl can be good. The Raptors have like some okay defenders, but Scotty Barnes is great. Scotty Barnes is a great defender. CMB is on his way to being a great defender. I think Haywood Highsmith would be the closest thing to those guys on this team defensively. I think he's that good defensively. I'm not putting him in DPOY conversations, but like he is an absolute great defender. Jonathan saying, thanks for the analysis, watching Sinners tonight. Shout outs to you, man. Let me know how it goes. And I hope to see you and a lot of the community at Pendants. We're getting shit going. Also, a little suggestion for y'all. So do y'all doom scroll? Not Pensare Basketball. This does not count as doom scrolling. But do you ever find yourself like scrolling through your Instagram feed and then like half an hour goes by and then you guys have that sensation happen to you? I have a solution for you. It's great. It's a great solution. We got an honest person here. I used to until I gave up on social media. I have only YouTube now. Shout outs to you. I don't have Instagram. I limit myself to only 9. This is about as funny a thing as I've ever heard you say, Tetrahedron. That's amazing. Yes, Twitter gets me. Yep, a bit. Okay, we got some honest people here. Okay, so I got a solution for y'all. It's working phenomenally for me right now. It's making me a lot more productive. If you have noticed, I've done a lot of lives over the last 2 days after maybe I would say in January, I didn't do as many lives and the YouTube revenue was like, so this is not for revenue. This is largely because I just have a clearer mind over the last 4 or 5 days. So I'll tell you what we did. And this is a really, really great hack. And if you live with somebody who can hold you accountable, this is a great way to do it. So in the morning, after breakfast, my girlfriend and I put our phones in a Tupperware container. In that Tupperware container, so both phones in the Tupperware container, easy to access in case of emergency. I know people sometimes, need to access their phone for a medical emergency or whatever. Put our phones in a Tupperware container. Forward any calls to our desktop. So just to make sure, like, if you're going to get a call or something, that you do have that. Put money in the Tupperware container. It has to be a sizable amount. So maybe $50 a piece. Okay. So you put $50 a piece into the Tupperware container. It's a big Tupperware container. It sits in the middle of the room. Everyone can see it. Now, you set a clock or an alarm in your phones, okay, for 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock or however long you are not supposed to access your phone, okay? If anybody opens that container for any reason whatsoever prior to that, other than a medical emergency, and no, a broken nail is not a medical emergency. They get the pot. The other person gets the entire pot, right? Um, Millie7404, what is Pendance? Pendance is a film festival. We founded it in 2017. A lot of people here have been to it. It's a celebration of deep, sometimes funny, sometimes thoughtful, sometimes scary, sometimes heartbreaking films from all around the world. Filmmakers come from all around the world, come to Toronto. There's a gala on March 1st where you can meet me. It's a small access, but yeah, it happens at the Carlton Cinema. So yeah, productivity and mental health improved right away. Yo, for me, it's ripping off the Band-Aid and uninstalling the apps on my phone when eventually I lost interest and deleted my accounts. Instagram and Reddit were the worst for me. That's great. There's also another solution, obviously, which is Minimalist Phone. I'm not sponsored by Minimalist Phone in any way, but it's something that I use. It makes your phone look very drab and it takes away some of the appeal of the bright colors on your phone and just kind of makes your phone a little less. Um, is the Pendance happening during All Star Weekend? No, it is not. So it is happening February 27th to March 1st this year. There will be 5 features and there will be 4 short blocks. So there will be shorts. Canadian shorts are on February 27th, 6:30. Then at or 6 o'clock at 8:30 is a Russian comedy feature. Amazing. During the day, Saturday, there will be a combination of shorts and features, including at night when there will be a horror comedy block for short films. If you've never checked out short films, like my God, what are you doing, man? They're some of the best things ever. Uh, and a good way to discover the future filmmakers of tomorrow. A lot of your favorite filmmakers started out making shorts. And it's something that's funny because, Yorgos Lanthimos is one of the biggest filmmakers in the world, one of the most respected, and he still occasionally makes shorts. We've actually programmed one of his shorts once. So interesting. I hadn't been to the movies like 2 decades as of months ago. I've been on a ton to get to every movie. I got one of those cinema passes. That's dope. Pendants also comes with passes. The all access pass, I think it's $125, gets you into everything, including one ticket to the gala. There's the VIP pass that gets you into 2 tickets into the gala. So cool. I will tell you more about Pendants next week. But yeah, are you going to PC weekend then? I am not. No, I have everything to do with Pendants the next 2 days. I am very, very thankful and very happy that the Raptors are not playing a lot of games because I have a lot of work to do. We got to deal with sponsorships, events, films, dealing with filmmakers and everything. So it's going to be a great event. I'm very excited. A lot of years in the past have been very, very stressed going into Pendants. There's a lot of like pressure. This year, I feel a lot better. There's no pressure at all. There's none. And pressure can be good. Obviously, it can bring out the best in you, but at some point, you just got to trust yourself. Nasty work, LOL. I can see why it works. It really does work. It really does work. Especially if you're somebody who doesn't want to lose the $100. The whole thing is social media hijacks your brain, right? So when you pick up your phone and you scroll Instagram, you get an immediate reward, which is you get stimulation. So your brain starts to look forward to it. If you try this thing out, let me know how it goes for you, right? Tariq saying Rob versus Swiper 1-on-1 in ball. Who wins? Me. Easily me. I am 2 years older and I am about probably 50 to 70 pounds lighter. So he would just bully me in the post. But if I get the ball, he's not getting it back. I think he's slow. Um, and I do believe that his handle is wonky enough. But man, like if he gets me in the post, I'm dead. Like I remember playing my ex-girlfriend's dad, who was a professional former I want to say amateur pro. He didn't play EuroLeague, but he played professional basketball. I remember playing him and I got murked because he just had a huge height and length advantage on me. Swiper has an enormous length advantage. I mean, I think he, at one point he mentioned that he had like a 6'7", 6'8" wingspan. I mean, that is a hard dude to score on, but I'd have to trust my quickness. And honestly, I haven't played basketball very much in the last 2, 3 years, so I'd be very, very rusty. But if I can practice for a little bit and get my shot back, yeah, I would give myself the edge on Swiper, but not on Ron or Ox. Those guys would destroy me very badly. AJ26er start Scotty Barnes BI3 Jakob CMB. Oh my goodness. I do not like this at all. Jakob and Trace Jackson Davis is a very also it's TJD, not TDJ. That's throwing me off a little bit. Yeah, I don't agree with this idea of putting Emmanuel quickly on the bench at all. Uh, I think the spacing is so atrocious in this lineup. Yeah. Who is Than 46.5 said, who is your favorite panelist? Jordan or Chill? If not them, then Mars. If not them, then maybe Ox and Ron. Yeah. Alt Rock saying, do you have concerns with Trace Jackson Davis and CMB playing at the same time as others do? Not really. No. No, I think they can play together. It's not optimal, but it's not unplayable. Like there are players that are untenable together. Trace Jackson Davis and Jakob Poeltl would be hard to play together. Not impossible, maybe for a change of pace, aggressive offensive rebounding lineup, whatever. But yeah. Also, if you're very curious or if you missed it, we did a pretty cool live yesterday at 2 a.m. I say 2 a.m., 3 a.m. No, it was 3 a.m. And it featured probably one of my favorite, it was this one. This one? So, first of all, I did this graphic work. It's funny to me, and I'm really happy I did it because, yeah, this was a thought that I had on how the Raptors have used analytics. So, yeah, what is the featured film at this year's Pendants? Well, I wouldn't really call it a featured film. There's 5 feature films, but there's quite a few actually, and some with some notable actors that you would recognize. One is Fantasy Life, which is a very interesting film. I think, yeah, I'll reveal the program for you for sure. Yeah, I will reveal the program for you in a couple of days. Give you like a full preview of trailers and stuff like that. What do you envision CMB's optimal role is in the future? Pepperjack, member of 5 months. Shout outs to you. Good question. Optimal role would be a cross between OG Anunoby and Julius Randle. So I know that I'm basically describing like an all-star, like a 6-time all-star, but that's the upside here. Like you want him to be a guy who can take guys, create his shots, right? Shoot open jumpers. Clearly, that's a huge priority for the Raptors is to transition him over to the wing, which is why I'm a little bit upset that he's had to play so much center this year. So that to me would be the optimal role is, secondary creation, short roll passing. So I don't think it's like necessarily the Draymond thing, right? It's definitely not Draymond. It's not like he has much more offensive upside, touch, feel than Draymond. But yeah. So I hope that answers your question, but let me know if it doesn't. I will play you one-on-one. Cool. Pen, who's your favorite rapper of all time? I don't know. It's a great question. I have no idea. Go through a lot of names in that grouping. Obviously, Tupac, KRS-One. I like Jay-Z. I like Dre. There's a lot. There's a lot of options there. Yeah. I also like Eminem. I really like Eminem too. All right. I mean, if you're saying Raptor of all time, that's a very different answer. Anyways, I will talk. Oh, Raptor. No, he meant rapper. He meant rapper. If you're saying who's my favorite Raptor of all time, that is a very, very interesting conversation. I think my favorite Toronto Raptor of all time, Scotty Barnes, Vince Carter, Kyle Lowry. Those 3. Yeah. Scotty Barnes, Vince Carter, Kyle Lowry. So yeah, those guys. So you could just imagine how geeked out I was when Vince Carter and Kyle Lowry got on a podcast together and talked about Scotty Barnes. It was great. OG Anunoby is up there as well. Marc Gasol is up there as well. Serge Ibaka is up there as well. Who else is up there? Who else is up there? Rod Strickland for the moment that he was a Raptor. Rafer Alston. Andrea Bargnani. Who else? Favorite. I like DeMar. DeMar's cool, but not necessarily my favorite in any way. But I did like him a lot at one point, but then he got all salty and kind of pissed me off. Marc Gasol is definitely up there for sure, 100%. Marc Gasol. I think I mentioned Mark. Yeah. So if I had to rank it out, probably Scotty, Vince, Kyle, Kawhi, Mark, Serge, TJ Ford up there. I did like Jonas Valanciunas at one point. Yeah, I liked Andrea Bargnani more than I liked Jonas Valanciunas. But I definitely bought the hype of Jonas Valanciunas. You got to realize if you were around when the Raptors drafted Jonas Valanciunas, you should understand like the shit that they were saying about what Jonas was going to be in the NBA. It was insane. Jorge Barbosa, not as much Jorge, but actually Anthony Parker. Anthony Parker was one of my favorite. Oh, Danielle Marshall. Danielle Marshall, one of my favorite Raptors too. I did like Jalen Rose a lot as well. Norman Powell, that's another one. Tracy McGrady, not so much. Nah, fuck. Sorry, can't. I respect Tracy McGrady's game. Amazing. Keon Clark, yeah, for sure. He was up there. Anthony Parker, as I said, yes, these are all solid names. If anyone says Bruce Brown, I'm a dude. You were lucky you were a member. You can get banned for you get banned for less than this. Wait, you're not a member. You could get banned for this. Nah, we will let it slide. You just stop trolling, man. This is traumatic shit that you are bringing up. Jalen McDaniels, Ochai Agbaji, Bruce Brown, Malachi Flynn, whose name you're not even saying his name right. 2016 Biyombo was amazing. I agree, absolutely. Yeah, I do like Goran Dragic. Sorry to y'all. You know he had higher ambitions, but I always loved Goran Dragic. I like Yuta Watanabe. Yuta was cool. What else did I like? Pascal was all right. Otto Porter. Yes, Otto Porter. And also I'd be remiss if I did not mention Ulrich Chomsky. Love Ulrich. And Jamal Shad. And a lot of the players on the current team. Let's just be honest. A lot of the players. Brandon Ingram is up there for sure. He hasn't been here long enough for him to climb into my top 5, but he is one of my 5 favorite players in the league right now. So it's pretty cool that, yeah, I'm okay with it. Patrick Patterson, I'm okay with it. Oh, Gravis Vasquez. Gravis Vasquez is another one, all-time favorite. James Johnson, definitely fun. Yup. I definitely made that video. Look like an idiot now. I thought Jared Sullinger was going to be good for us. I entertained the idea as well. All right. I'm done procrastinating. I'm going to get back to it, but definitely try out that cell phone thing and let me know if it curbs your social media bullshit. All right. Peace.